welcome to Super Important Reviews. My name's Steven. Thank you guys for 30,000 subscribers. That is insane. We're actually getting to be one of the more popular, at least toy reviewers, and it blows my mind. Blows it. Because we're actually still on a pretty steady pace to be cracking up there. So yeah, definitely appreciate all your guys' support. So as a thank you, as you can see, for this review anyways, we will be doing 6 figures in total. Now, I'm going to probably abridge this a little bit just to try to make this video not like over an hour long. So these reviews actually going to be going by pretty quick. Like, we're just going to try to plow through each of these guys. But I finally have essentially all the kaijus from the Godzilla series. Or at least appeared in the show, or at least from Toho anyways. So what we'll be going over today is Rodan from 1956, MOGUERA from the Mysterians, Gigan from Godzilla vs. Gigan, Anguirus from Destroy All Monsters, Mothra from Mothra, the 1961 version, and Baragon from Frankenstein Conquers the World. And Anguirus was the last one I was waiting on to complete this set. Actually, the first one I kind of got like MOGUERA, Mothra, and Baragon all in one shot. Rodan came shortly after, and then it was Gigan and then Anguirus in order, because essentially those two are the cheap ones to get, and then it's Rodan's probably the next closest one. Mothra, Gigan, Anguirus most expensive. But anyways, we're just gonna get into the review, because for the packaging, here's the front sections. For the back, as I knocked them over, you have essentially, it just shows on each of them, has them in their dynamic poses. You can also open them up, which his plastic insert is actually not in it right now. But on the inside for each of these, you'd have their own little bios. But we're just going to get into each of the figures. Again, I'm going to be kind of abridging each of them, just trying to get through these guys as quick as possible. Alright, so first and foremost, we're going to start with Anguirus and then move on to Baragon, and then after that it'll pretty much be kaijus of my own choosing, because over up on our other channel, The Geek Chest, we did an unboxing for Anguirus here. Well, actually, he was already unboxed. He just kind of appeared in the video, and then we unboxed the Rick Boy Belial. And in that video, they requested an order of certain kaijus they wanted, while for the most part, it seemed like everybody thought I was going to be doing separate videos for each of these. Nope, just one giant video. And Anguirus had the most requests to be done first, and then followed by Baragon, and after that, just whatever I feel like. So anyways, what Anguirus comes with in the packaging is you're going to have to attach 2 of his legs onto him, which is a little bit of a pain in the butt. If I remember right, it was, I want to say this side was the one I'm sitting here like cranking to get this in, because it doesn't come with a Revoltech tool or anything to pop these things on. So the best thing I can recommend is just use a hairdryer, heat up the socket hole, and just try to pop it in then. But for Anguirus, he comes with a fancy 10-point Revoltech coin, which is absolutely useless to us. Comes with a little stand with his name, or I guess technically it'd be like a little plate. Which sometimes these hook to the V-shaped stands that some of the figures have. But with majority of all of these, they're just going to be kind of just sitting in front of the kaijus in case you forget their names, which is, I guess, fancy. But has a little peg hole on the bottom if you do have a stand that you want to sit next to them. Has a little case that's primarily for holding the coins, but you can also store some of these other stuff in it if you need to. Certain stuff will fit better, way better than others. For instance, the Spaceship from Destroy All Monsters, which it also comes with. Which for the Spaceship, detailed very nicely, done in a metallic silver with some red and black accents and some blue here on the top section. You can see the little window on the top here too is painted in a jet black. Get some white on the side. And some numbers here for, or numbers and letters for the SY-3. Which, pretty sweet. I actually like that it's blasting off and it looks cool. The only thing that's kind of depressing is he's the only monster that we got from Revoltech for Destroy All Monsters, and it would have been kind of cool to maybe have like a little diorama with, or at least be able to set up the kaijus all around, and then if they would have each came with stuff from the film, you could have maybe made something like a diorama in order to actually like replicate the film. Well, this is pretty much all you get. So we're kind of just hoping that Monstars or somebody starts making more Showa kaijus so that we can actually make a little bit more use out of this. But I'll probably be having this sit up on my shelf anyways. But it actually, when you get it out of the packaging, comes detached from the smoke, which for the smoke looks pretty nice, done in a translucent plastic with some frosted blue, grays, a little bit of orange and reds here for the center section to kind of replicate the flame. Overall, it looks pretty nice, and you can also see the seam line here where it connects to the base here. Sticks out pretty well, but just standing on your shelf, it's not going to be too noticeable, and it's pretty simple to peg this in here. You'll see that the bottom here has its own little design. You just kind of match it up, slide it on, good to go. And then moving on to Anguirus, the overall sculpt for the figure is done very nicely, very Anguirus-esque. You have the horns on the top section here done to bone color. The entire kaiju is done in more of a brown, with some black highlights to help show off the scaling a little bit better. Some white here for the teeth, red for the intersection. Tons done in a glossy red as well. Same with the roof of the mouth, detailed very nicely. I like too that they got the fangs on the top section, which is correct, and his super large eyes. Which, thing that kind of bothers me is these look really straight, very nice. You think Monster Arts could do that? Well, at least like for the most part, like all my Monster Arts comes fine. It's just that pesky 2002 with his kung fu eyes. They're not googly eyes, they're kung fu eyes. Makes it sound cooler. One thing I kind of wish though is that the tongue was articulated, because every time you see Anguirus open his mouth, his tongue usually stuck somewhere in the middle for his roar, and it just seems kind of weird just resting on the bottom of his mouth. But for some of the gapping, you get a really huge one here on the under section of the neck, but for the most part, the arms kind of hide that pretty nicely. And this is actually on a hinge, which you can, I'm assuming, get that into the hole, and then you can kind of work the head. That looks a lot better. Why the heck did that pop? Like, what's the necessary reason for that to actually pop? You know what? It's Revoltech. I don't argue with these things. The spikes on the back section are done in a very soft rubber, which is really cool because it's pokey, but you're not going to hurt yourself on this thing, which is really nice to see. I also like too that if you have him rearing his back, the plates lift up a little bit on here, which reminds me a crap ton of Godzilla Raids Again, where you can see the back section of the kaiju here, which is just like a nice little, I'm not going to say gimmick, because without it, you wouldn't be able to articulate this section without slicing the back section. So it's kind of a necessity, but it makes sense for how the suit was. Bottom section here, you just get some weathering paints. Hands look very nice. Nails done in a bone coloring. For the tail, only part I really have a qualm with is that it's a bendy wire, so excessive articulation could break the wire on the inside of it. Really would have preferred to see some joints, just like you see on the sections. Granted, more joints, more seam lines, but for this, I think it's a little bit more meritable. Same with the spikes here. Soft rubber, so you don't have to worry about these breaking. Same with the tails, done in a softer rubber as well. So, bends very nicely. But, again, kind of worry over time. Actually, kind of already feels like it's already broken on the inside, to be honest. Yeah, that's kind of going its own way. I'm pretty sure that the wire is already damaged on the inside of this guy. But, I don't really plan on articulating it too much, so it's not a big deal. You can get it to bend. Oh god, that doesn't look good. You know what? We're just gonna keep this straight. How about that? Speaking of, for his articulation, head click up about that far, down about that far. With a Revoltech, the ratchets only go in one direction, so if you want to have them going opposite directions, you will have to adjust the joint in order to do that. So essentially, he can only really look up and down, no side to side. But not a huge deal. Mouth opens and closes. Arms can go forward, back, and swivel on the upper section of the shoulder joints. Again, you kind of have to rotate it if you want to get them to go into opposite angles, but for the most part, that swivel there kind of solves that problem. Elbow can bend in and outwards. A little bit of rotation there as well. Hand can rotate all the way around and go up and down. For the chest section, can crunch about that far. Straighten up all that far. A little bit of rotation, but the shell gets in the way. For the hind legs, can go backwards about that far, forwards about that far, bend at the knee, little bit of rotation there. Same with the rotation at the top section of the thigh. Feet can go forward about that far, backwards about that far, which kind of might be nice if you could actually get him to look like he's on all fours instead of being on his knees. But the knees are more accurate for what you see in the movie. And then again, tail's a bendy wire, so you kind of just pose it however you want, but mine has issues. But you can get the tail to go up about that far with the ratchet joint, down about that far. And again, if you want it to go side to side, you're going to have to probably pop the tail off, rotate the joint to be able to articulate it side to side. Now for Baragon here, we actually get quite a bit of accessories with him, which is really nice. It kind of helps to make it a little bit more display friendly. But just like Anguirus, we get the 10-piece coin for the Revoltech, and also a little case to store some stuff in, but primarily, again, for the coin, which is, yeah, still useless. But he does come with 2 little trees, which is really cool, detailed very nicely. They do not come off the stand, but the stand is done in more of a green, with some brown here for the tree trunk, and then the top of the tree done in a nice forest green. Overall, pretty happy with the trees. Has a little horse accessory, which you actually have to attach to the base, but it's just like the bases for the tree. But the horse is detailed very nicely with some browns and blacks for the mane, tail, and hooves. Overall, pretty nice. Thing is, I haven't actually seen Frankenstein Conquers the World, so I'm not 100% certain what the horse is or what the building really has to do with Baragon, but it's detailed nicely. I wish the door could swing. That would have been cool, but it's got a little base here, some stairs going up into the building. It's done in a triangle shape with some yellowing for the siding here. Back windows are broken, which is the first thing I've noticed because I haven't really paid too much attention to the accessories because I'm trying to build these guys up so I can actually do the video. So I haven't really checked out these guys. With some taller grass here on the back. I could probably mow the yard a little bit more at this little shanty. Top section looks like he's been biting into it, which is what I'm going to assume. You can't get his mouth on there, but kind of looks like he's biting it. But still, really awesome little accessories for him because you kind of just like set them all up. That looks pretty cool. But for the rest of our happy little Baragon, look at that little smile. He's just happy to see everybody, all the Rangers. But for his horn, is that translucent? Looks translucent to me, or at least the really nicely frosted yellow for the horns. Eyes look very nice. Eyes are also straight. Also has a little fluff on his ears, which I like too because these are actually articulated. So you can pull him back. And he looks like he's a little upset, like he's scared. Man, this guy's like the epitome of a puppy dog kaiju, essentially. But has its little pug nose. Like again, this reminds me a crap ton of a dog. Like, it looks like my dog upstairs, essentially. Like if the ears could fold forward, this would be Shinji. But for the eyes are done in a yellow with some black and white for the pupils. Teeth are done in a bone color, which is a little bit strange since Anguirus is white, his is bone coloring, but not gonna fight it. Inside of the mouth is done in a pink coloring. Kaiju is a dirt brown color, but since he primarily like offense and defense is digging, it kind of helps us to blend in with the ground. For the back here, you get some plating. Looks really cool. Tail on this guy is also a bendy wire like Anguirus, so again, kind of the same issue. Wish this was a joint as well, because since the majority of the figures is a joint, why stop there? Especially since you get one here at the base of the tail anyways. Might as well just continue with the Kaiju. Bottom section looks kind of like a turtle. In a way, like have you guys ever seen like the Showa Gamera suit? Mostly the same as what you see on that one too for the stomach section here. Which leads me to think that he's got a pretty tough hide. For his arms and hands, has a little bit more of a bubbling scale texture, especially at the hands with his 3 fingers. Nails are done in a not quite the same brown as the body. It's got a little bit more of a shine to it. Same with the toenails. It's like a really dark sand color. And then a little bit more of like a lighter sand color for the top of the feet there. Overall, detailed very nicely, which you're going to hear me say that a lot for these guys. Like, definitely, like, if they would have kept up with this line, would have easily gave Monster Arts a run for their money. But for the articulation for this guy, head can look up about that far, which is nice. So if you have him on all fours, he can look straight ahead. Down about that far. So again, if you have him standing up, looks right. Mouth can open up and down. Can rotate head side to side. I guess you not real any wiggle there. But if you, again, like just like with Anguirus, if you shift the joints, you could get him to wiggle, but then he would lose his forward and back, which I don't know how much you really want to mess around with this. For the arms, though, can go up about that far, down about that far. Pretty much can, if you work it, you can get that thing all the way around. For the elbow, forward and back, not on a ratchet joint. It's actually a little hinge joint there. That's pretty cool. Hand can... I don't know if I want to stress that to go all the way around. It's a little tight, but it can go all the way around and forward and back. For the lower legs, can go forward about that far. Really stiff on this guy. Downwards about that far. A little bit in and out. For the leg section here as well. Knees can go forward about that far. Backwards about that far. Rotate pretty nicely. Feet can go up about that far. Down about that far. And the tail can go up about that far. Down about that far. And then pretty much bend whichever direction you want with the wire in there. But I don't recommend doing it too excessively because you could possibly break the wire in there as well. Alright, so next for Rodan comes with the pretty much same little Revoltech coin case. You're going to see those a lot today. Also has a little mini flying Rodan. So you can kind of get like those sweet perspective shots with this Rodan. Also, the only way you really get a Rodan with the head flying upwards, which is a little sad. But Rodan is detailed very nicely with some dark browns and a little bit of blacks for some added highlighting. Wings look very nice. Head sculpt looks pretty good. Overall, they did a really nice job with the little perspective. You're going to have to actually put this on the little plastic peg, which isn't really super hard to do. Also, the stand comes unattached as well. You'll have to attach that. Overall, pretty neat. One thing I am missing is there's actually a little metallic rod that comes with this, which is for Rodan, in order for it to peg into the building here, which you can see right there. There's a little peg hole in between the rocks. Now, I guess there's a way of hooking his foot into there. It's actually, after looking at it a little bit more, the metal peg is actually supposed to go in this back peg hole. The bottom one is for his foot, which I actually highly recommend just using the foots. It's a little bit easier to balance him on there, which all you do is just take the top of the peg off and you just insert it into the hole. Easier said than done, because that's a stupid tiny little joint there. Surprisingly not a ratchet joint, but getting it into there more or less is good luck. Alright, there we go. We got Rodan on top of his building. Now we just gotta work that foot on top, articulate the wing a little bit, maybe. There we go. So he's kind of crushing the building, and now the building, what's cool too about this building is you can actually kind of have it like leaning even more to the side when it's actually articulated, which is really cool. But getting Rodan off of there for the building, detailed very nicely. You got some signs here on the side of the building. Not much really going on the back section. It's just kind of like crumbling walls over here, which still looks pretty nice. Also a little peg hole there too. Does his foot hook into that guy too? Ooh, it does. So that's cool. So I guess you can kind of arc it on the back there too as well. Or kind of make it look like Rodan's like flying sideways in the back. That's really cool looking, actually. Gives it like this nice little perspective shot. And then you can kind of just have Rodan in the foreground. Oh, I like that a lot. Actually, it's the first time you actually seen that little peg hole. But building accessory, really sweet. Then finally for Rodan, overall fairly mute color palette here, which you have a lot of browns and blacks, a little bit of a tan on the front section for the claws. See whatever these things were called. The little spiky protrusions on the front of Rodan's chest, and also on the beak as well. It's a little bit more of a sand, not quite a bone coloring, but it has some jet black eyes, which is kind of funny because you think it would have pupils kind of like the rest of the kaijus, but for the most part, for that original film anyways, like, this seems pretty correct for the eyes, because you never really saw the pupils. You just saw kind of shots of Rodan and just him doing his screechy roar thing. But for the rest of the kaiju, not a crap ton in terms of the articulation department, and period, because even for the wings here, these are a bendy wire on the side section here. You get the articulated joint here, and then it can either fold into his very spade-shaped body, or you can articulate them out sideways in order to kind of get it to look like it's more flapping, which is pretty sweet. But for the most part, not a whole heck of a lot going on with the kaiju. You got the tail on the back section here. He's got the butthole and some tiny little feet with some bone color here for the claws there. And that's pretty much it. Like, pretty nice looking Rodan still, because there's not really that much you can really do with Rodan outside of just giving him some more articulated joints, kind of like what they did with the Monstars. But I think Revoltech still did a pretty nice job on this guy overall in terms of sculpt. The only thing that sucks is for his head, that's as high as it can look up. So you can't really get this Rodan into a flying pose, which I guess is fine for the way they have him set up anyways for the stands and what have you. But it still may have been like a nice option in case you want to get your own stand to have him in a flying pose. But for the most part, this Rodan is just going to be standing around. For the head, you can look down about that far, can rotate side to side, pretty much full exorcist. For the arms, can go up about that far, down about that far, can rotate all the way around. Do pop off pretty easily. And ideally, you want it in the little slit on the side of the body here. For the legs, not too much forward, nothing really back. You essentially just rotate them outwards. And it has a bend here at the knee, but no rotation because it's on a hinge. And the feet can go up and down and rotate all the way around. Also, before we move on to that dude there, he also would have came with a nameplate, but currently can't find the stupid thing. Next for Gigan, we have more of the same with the coin and the little case. We've got some name tags in case you have a problem with Alzheimer's, which if you do, they were thinking about you. And some little power plant accessories, which is really cool because there was that one scene where he's kind of just like stomping through the factories and what have you. So you can kind of recreate that little diorama. Granted, I think I would have appreciated it more if he would have came with like the Godzilla tower. That would have been fantastic. But this is still a pretty sweet little accessory. Plus, you can kind of mix and match it with some of your Tamashii accessories as well. And also, you can swap this little pipe out for a bent one. So this is essentially how it looks once you get it fully assembled. But pretty cool little setup that they have going on with Gigan here. And honestly, probably one of my more favorites next to Mothra. But moving on for a closer look at his details, head sculpt is freaking awesome. Same with the coloring. Like, I love the eyes on this Gigan. Super nice looking, especially with the beak where you got the rows of teeth on the top section, nothing on the bottom. A more pinkish color for the inside of the mouth, but they even have the little extra blade section on the top, which looks really cool. You got the mandibles on the sides. You got some silver here for the spikes on the top section with its very, more like an aqua green. Looks really nice. So very accurate for the kaiju with the King Ghidorah scales on the front section here. And his little chainsaw on the front, which we need one of these that actually spins. But for the figure, looks really nice. I also like too that this is a little bit more of a harder plastic, which is a little bit scary because if this thing like falls any kind of distance, I can see these snapping. But still looks really nice. Tail is... The fins on the back are a soft plastic, so you don't have to worry about breaking those things. But they do kind of have a funky shape to them. Not gonna lie. But you can even see more of the King Ghidorah scales on the back here as well. And the fins are done in a yellow color scheme with a little bit more of an orange for the base of the stalks here. For the tail, more King Ghidorah scales with that same green coming along the sides and the bottom with its pointed little tail and some more spikes coming along the back section. And for its hands, you got the giant hook claws, same with the feet where you just have that one giant singular metal toe and his little kneecaps that you see for the suit. Which is one thing I always thought was really cool about these, is they kind of capture the suit very nicely, which is something that you don't really see too much in the monster arts. Those are a little bit more stylized. Well, these guys definitely harken a lot more back to the suit. And honestly, I still think this is probably, I'm going to say, my third favorite Revoltech in terms of, well, at least out of the ones we're doing in this video, in terms of just overall detailing. Like, this is easily probably, maybe next to the monster arts, my favorite Gigan I have. This one's really cool. For its head sculpt, can look up about that far. And down about that far. Mouth can, once you get articulated, open and close. The mandibles on the side can also shift in and out, but do be careful because these things can snap pretty easily from what it feels. For the shoulders, can go up about that far, down about that far. Can rotate all the way around. Has a nice double joint at the elbows. Not much of a rotation there though. Same with the claws. For the legs, can't really go outwards, but can't really go forwards either. There we go. Kind of gotta find where the joint is, but it goes more at an angle the way it's set up right now. But you can rotate the top of the legs. Knees are on a ratchet, so they bend backwards about that far, forwards about that far, smack the camera. But feet can also go forward about that far, backwards about that far. Just notice the little suit crease on the top section here of the thigh. That's pretty cool. Then for the tail, can go up about that far, down about that far. Kind of trying to figure out where the heck that joint is for that too. It's kind of a little screwy. And then has a bendy wire for the tail, but again, don't really like messing around with these too much in case they... And it has a bendy wire for the tail, but I don't really like messing around with those too much, just in case if they break. So his tail is just going to be sticking straight forevers. And then next we have Mothra, which, again, case, Revoltech coin. Moving on. We also have our fancy little nameplate. Again, very customary for these kind of figures. But mainly what you're probably wanting to pick up this Mothra for is the stand. Like the display, the whole shebang that you have going on here. Because looking at this thing from the front, looks gorgeous. Like you have the cocoon she came out of. She's kind of like sitting a little higher above the Tokyo Tower with a little bit of damage on it, missing the top section of the tower. With the little building on the undersection, you got some foliage all around it, with some brown dirt on the side here, some green on the back section, and also on the front. And what's cool is she actually has a few places that she can kind of peg into. You can have her peg in on the back here, or also from the cocoon. This I don't recommend though, because popping this off real quick, because this is what actually supports the cocoon. Is just these two little pegs here, which is freaking terrifying for this thing, because I already have a hard enough time trying to squeeze this thing on here without trying to break these tiny little supports, because that's how that hooks on. So half the time I don't even have this thing fully resting on here right, and doing this, you're going to apply a lot of weight onto those pegs once you put Mothra on it as well. Here's where you can see where actually what slots into there is not actually the peg, but the little plastic piece that wraps around Mothra's waist here. You slide that into there. So then you have it really close, so then it looks like she's kind of holding onto it and coming out of it, which is really cool. But I don't just like the idea of her and this on these tiny little pegs. You can do it, don't get me wrong, but it's like any sudden movement with your Mothra, like somebody just goes to grab and pick it up with the Mothra instead of actually at the base. And ideally, you'd probably just want to do this double-fisted anyways, picking them both up. So if you're going to peg her into something, I personally recommend hooking it into there. And then before we fully get in the Mothra, she also comes with a little plastic bit to hook her onto her stand, which these come with some of the other flying figures that they produce, like Gauss came with one of these, where you just slide it over top, And you just pop the abdomen back in. But detail-wise for Mothra, she's definitely got it going on. I especially love, too, the really hard edges around, like, the... Kind of reminds me of, like, lightning on the section here of the wing. And on the back section, again, very hard edges to make that kind of face appearance. But you also get the fuzz as it goes into the body. Top sectioning, mostly the same design for Mothra, is done in a cream-ish color. Like, it's almost like brown sugar. She's got a little bit of sweetness to her. With her teal eyes, which are done very nicely, have a clear plastic over top of the eyeball to give it a really nice shine to it. Her little antennas, I keep wanting to call them feathers because they just look like little feathers on the front. But really antennas, you got her mouth with the little appendages on the front section here. You have her 6 little tiny legs. Back section looks nice with some dark brown here for the bottom of the fuzz. Top section, you get a little bit of yellowing on the center section of the fuzz. And some yellow strapping around her back section here. Overall, really nice looking figure. To me, I think the one thing is she still looks, I guess, slightly too clean, but I think that's just mainly the way the figure is just, it's being plastic. It's not going to look quite as gritty as Mothra did in that first film, but I still think they did a really nice job replicating the overall look, because it definitely feels and looks like an older toy, which is kind of what I'd be expecting to see with the original Mothra. It's definitely not as, it's still pretty, but not as pretty as, say, the Monstars Heisei figure, because that thing is gorgeous looking. But then again, I don't really worry about the legs falling off, so it's a positive in the end. But for her articulation, head can look a little bit up, a little bit down. Not too much side to side for me. She's really stiff, but get a decent range of motion. Her mouth can actually open about that far and close, which is really nice. For her little legs, not too much really going on here, but you can adjust them a little bit. For the back section, a little bit of a wiggle there as well. And then for her wings, can go down about that far, up about that far. Can't really do too much crazy with it in terms of the front wings, but the back wings, you can see it can come down pretty far, which is really cool to see. Also, this one likes to pop off really easy. And that's mainly because this section here is on its own little hinge. So it gets a little bit more articulation than the primary wings that are hooking into the body. And yeah, that's pretty much it for her. She's the least impressive in terms of articulation, but arguably the coolest one fully assembled. And finally, oops, we have MOGUERA. Actually, for the recording of this video, I haven't actually gotten this one out of the box yet. He's been, like, I got him for my wife for Christmas, and he's just been kind of chilling in there ever since, so guess I'm gonna have to assemble him real quick, because he's not quite himself. Alright, so now that he's fully assembled, we got more useless. Still, I guess useful. We have a Mysterian, though, which is actually really cool. You don't get too many little people with these figures, so that's pretty cool. But then again, like, that guy is huge in comparison to MOGUERA. But then again, this is also a movie I haven't seen yet. I just know of him in them. It's kind of like this. I have no idea what this is actually for, but it's a little radar dish. Comes with a little stand you can put it on, which is really cool. Detailed and painted very nicely. Only thing is it can either stay straight up or down, because it just, You can kind of get it to stick, but I feel like anytime you walk anywhere near the shelf that this is going to be on, it's just going to be, so either up or down for the most part. And it's kind of cool to have the Mysterian stand here, though I wish he maybe would have had like something to peg into too, which currently has nothing. And then MOGUERA comes with its own little base, which is just plants, trees, got a little bit of ground here, which I like too, that you have like the trees going into the dirt. It's pretty cool. But for the most part, just a nice little stand to keep our MOGUERA secure. Which one thing I'm going to mention is that this guy is easily the worst out of the bunch in terms of just being a figure and assembly. His assembly is terrifying. Because This isn't attached in to the figure when you get it out of the package. You actually have to put this in. And this is just a very thin piece of plastic that goes into a very, very thin little hole. And I heated this thing up, stretched it with a screwdriver, and I still cannot get this thing to go in all the way. Like, it's stuck. And I really don't want to break it, so it's just going to sit here. And then also you have the tail here, which when you're attaching this can possibly rub. I like that it looks like he's wearing a cape though, which is cool. You have to attach that into there too. But for me, I don't know why his knee joints are freaking so stiff. Like this one, I can get the move a little. This one is in a cockeyed direction on the figure. So I'm trying to pull it back, but I feel like I'm just going to break that thing if I try to. So I'm just going to leave it alone. Tail's got a lot of movement, but I also think the tail's popping out of its peg hole again. Because for some odd reason, out of all this, that's the loose one. But for MOGUERA's details, it's done very nicely still. Like, I'm not going to really mess around with this guy moving him too much, but still will look nice standing on my shelf. The other thing, too, is attached to these antennas is a butt. As you can also see, that is currently not in there because how do you apply downward pressure in order to get that stupid thing in all the way without either making the hole slightly bigger or... I guess I could try heating up. I didn't try that yet. Cool thing is he comes with an extra one, just in case if you do break the one, you do have one other one, which is cool, because I could easily see that happening. I always like, too, that the eyes aren't quite even. To me, anyways, that looks like this side's a little bit more slanted than the other, which kind of helps to replicate the suit a little bit more with its overall metallic gold coloring for most of its body. Got a little bit of silver and, gonna say like a copper throughout the rest of his body, and on the back it's more of like a metallic teal, which is really nice, and some silver here for the bottom with its giant ignition tube thing on the end of its tail. Feet are just a little bit pointy, and the one thing I kind of like is on the original, they're more like pincers for hands, which eventually became like the opening missile launcher for the Heisei series. Granted, Heisei MOGUERA, definitely way sweeter than what we got here, and I don't even think like he gets that much loving, which makes me sad because he's actually a cool looking mech. And this is just like very off the walls. Like it looks like he's just like one giant tank, which I guess makes sense because of the how he worked in the Heisei movie too, because it just looks like treads and treads. Overall detailing wise, like I think he looks fine. It's just like the way he's assembled inside the packaging, where you got attached top, middle, tail, and this thing, it definitely could have been done better. Like I don't really see why this had to be separated, where they could have just put a plastic clamshell in the general area so it's not going to be bumping and breaking, and instead of it being a separate piece, which is a horrible idea for the concept they went with. But for the articulation, head can look not really at all up, not really at all down here. I feel a joint there, but nothing's clicking. Oh, alright, got to go up a little bit. There we go. So that high up and one down. Woohoo. For the sides, can go side to side. Shoulders can go, trying to see where the joint is. Alright, so up about that far, down about that far, rotate all the way around. Elbow is also on a ratchet joint. Can go back and forth, rotates all the way around. Body can go forward about that far, back about that far. A little bit of a rotation. Legs can go where the joint's set up, they can go forward and back a little bit, but nothing really outwards. Rotate side to side. Again, if you want to get him to articulate his legs outwards, you're going to have to adjust the joint on the inside of the leg. Knees can go backwards. I'm going to use this one because this one's a little bit not quite as stiff as the other one, but back about that far, forward about that far. Feet can go up and down, all the way around. Can also rotate this section here as well. And then for the tail, it's just one solid piece, but it has a ratchet joint up here in the rear region, so the tail can go up and down and rotate side to side. So for comparisons, I have them here with some of the Showa SH Monster Arts figures, and this is going to be the only comparison because for the most part, compared to Bandai Vinyls and most everything else in my collection, these guys are definitely a lot smaller in scale, so they're not going to be working really with any of those. And I feel like if you're interested in these guys, you probably already own some Monster Arts figures as well, more than likely. Because at their prices, it's just as much to pick some of these guys up nowadays as most Monster Arts figures. So you're probably like, hey, I got this Mechagodzilla, how good's the Anguirus? Or I got the 64, how good's the Mothra? And to be honest, I don't think they're really that bad compared next to these. Like, especially like Anguirus, I don't really think is that horribly out of scale with the Mechagodzilla. Mothra, you can get it to work. Mothra's wings should be way huger compared to 64 Godzilla, but it's still not a bad look next to each other. These guys have actually done a photo gallery like a long time ago. Baragon looks pretty nice next to them. Same with Rodan. Gigan is probably the oddball out of the bunch because he should be at least as tall as everybody else. But I do feel like if you guys do collect Monster Arts figures, these guys will definitely be suitable to go along with them. So overall, with the Revoltech, Rodan, Anguirus, Gigan, Moguera, Baragon, and Mothra, these figures are really nicely done. They come with a lot of accessories, really nicely detailed. I would say my favorite after doing this review and going through all of them, probably Gigan. I really like the setup for him, and the figure's it's just a really cool figure to begin with. Next would probably be Mothra, then Baragon, Anguirus, Rodan, and then Moguera's probably my least favorite out of the bunch. Which is sad because Moguera comes with a crap ton and a lot of his stuff looks really cool, but just functionally, he's just not a very good figure. Now I guess the question is, do I recommend these guys at the inflated price that they are at now? Which mostly, like, Baragon, Moguera, and Rodan are not that hard to get a hold of. Mothra, Gigan, and especially Anguirus is going to be the ones that are going to be a little bit more tricky to get a hold of, especially at a reasonable price. Because if I remember right, Anguirus was 80, Gigan was 70, Mothra I think was closer to 60, it was like high 50s. Baragon was like 30, Rodan I think was around 40-ish, and Moguera was like 20 bucks. Which isn't really all that bad for articulated figures. Pretty much like the top 3 harder ones were the ones that I paid a little bit more than what they came out for, with Anguirus definitely losing out on that one. But for how hard he is to get a hold of and just him being a very sought after figure, definitely when I see him go up for way less than like usually like 120, 150 eBay price is what I see him at. 80 bucks didn't seem that bad at all. But having them in hand, I still hold to my guns that for most Revoltechs, once you get to about 50 bucks, it starts getting really hard to merit them unless they come with a lot of stuff to really blow you away. And Mothra and Gigan, I can kind of justify them being a little bit higher price. Anguirus barely comes with anything, so he's actually the one I don't feel like nearly as suitable for how much he goes for now. And Rodan, Baragon, and Moguera are definitely pretty much what they're priced at. Seems right. With Moguera easily being the cheapest one to get a hold of and is the worst one. So to reiterate, Anguirus is easily the one I would pass on at his current price tag, because it's just, unless you really, really love Anguirus, I can't really recommend him at his 150. 80, I'm still not really happy with how much I paid for them, but it's fine. With everybody else pretty much pleased with the price point that I was at with them. So if you guys are able to pick them up for close to what I got them for, definitely would recommend it. But what do you guys think? Have you guys picked up any Revoltechs? What's your favorite out of the bunch here? Is Monster Arts a smart thing? Please let us know in the comments. Look closer pictures of these guys are on our Facebook. You want to click the link description below. We also have our Patreon account, exclusive prints for the channel, also down in the description. And help us defeat those kaijus by hitting that like button, subscribe, become a ranger today. See you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.